So let's just dig a little bit deeper into why I believe it's the greatest opportunity right now to teach online. There's a number of different factors I think that have really converged to make this a unique moment in time for artists to be able to start teaching their art online. First thing is I think there's more interest than ever before in the history of the world in people wanting to learn arts and crafts. I think people are returning to more of creative pursuits because the world has become so complex. There are so many demands on our lives, our time. There's so much stress and pressure. I think more and more people are starting to turn back to what is innately natural to them, which is creative pursuits. So painting, drawing, pottery, any form of craft and art, I think is becoming more and more important to a lot of people. That's been fueled also by the fact that media, especially online, has made learning arts and crafts more accessible than ever before. So that's a big driver. The fact that technology has combined with this sort of, I guess, inward turn of humanity back towards the creative pursuits is the two of them are converging and fueling the demand for people wanting to learn more about painting. I think it's always been there, but the accessibility maybe hasn't been there as it is right now today. So when people go onto YouTube and they start watching videos about painting, what it does is it creates a desire in them to want to learn more. And the more that sort of grows, the more people it pulls in as well. So the other factor I think is the fact that the baby boomer generation, there's millions and millions of baby boomers who have reached a certain age right now where the kids are gone. Kids have become adults, they've moved off, got married themselves, they're winding down their careers, they're retiring, and they're affluent, in a lot of cases. And so there's this huge market that's sort of emerged of people who probably always wanted to learn how to paint or draw or whatever, but they just never had the time during the active years of their career. And so now in their 50s and 60s, they're turning to creative pursuits in huge numbers. And that's certainly been what I've experienced. So when you combine that with the fact that learning online, not just in art, but in right across the board, is the future of all learning. I believe that the way we've learned in the past is going to be superseded by online learning. Now, that doesn't mean that people won't want to go to art classes and workshops. There are certain personality types that will always want to go to an art class and meet the teacher and have a laugh and enjoy that social aspect of it. There's no doubt about that at all. But that doesn't mean that you can't tap also into a global audience online of people who want to sit in front of their laptop and learn some skills and some lessons about how to paint better and then go and apply it in their own studio. So this is the greatest time in history for those who want to teach art because there's never been an opportunity quite like what we have right now. And I think it's only going to get better in the next decade. Now, here's the thing I want to really stress. As artists, we don't like to talk about business and money so much, but I want you to get your head around this, that every time you do a painting, if you're an artist who's trying to make a living by painting and selling their art, every time you do a painting, what happens is you take that painting, you put it into a gallery, somebody falls in love with it, they buy it, and you get paid. But you generally only get paid once for that piece of artwork. Now, really good artists have been able to create prints of their art and sell those as well, but usually limited edition, and usually that runs out as well. So you only ever get paid one time, generally speaking, for a piece of art that you create. However, when you create a project teaching a piece of art or a course, what happens is you actually build an asset that you can get paid for multiple times over and over again for years to come if you do it correctly. So if you create an evergreen painting course or project, you could potentially earn an income off of that painting course or project for the next 5 or 10 or 20 years if you set yourself up correctly and you understand some of the business principles behind this. So what we're in effect doing is not just creating projects and courses, we're actually creating assets that we can leverage for income into the future. So imagine if you created a project, or let's say you created a course. It was 3.5 hours. It took you a few weeks to put it together, but it was a really good course. People liked it, and you made sure you created the course around what people were interested in. That's a real key. But you put all this effort and time and so on into it. You get paid nothing while you're creating that course. All the effort, maybe it takes you 2 or 3 weeks to film it and edit it and to publish it. You get paid absolutely nothing during that time. However, once you've published it on the right platforms, whether that's a platform you don't own, like a Udemy or a Skillshare, or your own platform, or all of them, all right? Once you've published it, let's say that course only earns you $100 a month, right? So $100 this month, $100 next month, $100 a month after, and that continues for a decade or more, right? How good would that be? How many of those courses would you create? So what I want you to do is start thinking of, we're not just creating courses and projects, we're creating assets that we can monetize and earn an income from into the future. Now, one of the big challenges, of course, is it seems so overwhelming. When you start to think about creating a project or a course, it just literally, there's so much to think about, or at least you think, right? And you're going to learn a lot of what I do in this course here, but the ultimate way to learn, which is exactly the same as art, you can get the skills and knowledge, but the real way to learn is just by doing. So what I'd recommend is that you get a tripod and your mobile phone, you sit your mobile phone up on your tripod and you do a painting and talk to the phone, right? And just get the experience of doing it. And the more you do that and the more comfortable you become in front of the camera, the easier it'll be and the quicker you'll progress. So you really do learn by doing as far as creating courses and projects is concerned. The other real key aspect of this is the accumulated effort. Right? It's what I call the law of accumulated effort. So when you start out, you put a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of work into it, right? And you don't get paid a lot of money out of it. And there will be times when you'll feel frustrated by that and you'll question whether you're doing the right thing. I highly recommend in those times that you take a long-term focus. Create a 3 to 5 year plan with this, not a 3-minute plan or a 3-week plan. It's going to take time. You put your first course up, you're probably not going to make a lot of money from that. But by the time you put your 10th course up, what happens is each of those courses fuels the interest in the other courses. And so over time, it's the compounding effect of effort that you put in over time. So the key is to start and don't quit, right? Just keep at it even when it doesn't seem to be working. So I've been doing this for 6 years now. I started More Art School 6 years ago. I started playing around with video back then because I had an interest in, creating videos. And I started playing around. My first year or so of videos were pretty ordinary and I cringe when I look at them today. But the effort of just progressively bit by bit building up this library of projects and courses over time, that accumulated effort now creates me an income stream that basically means that I can make a full-time living from my art. So now I didn't do it full-time for most of those 5 years. I was working a day job, trying to do this around the evenings and weekends and so on. And so that's highly possible if that's the position you find yourself in. Just have a plan to do it for 3 to 5 years and keep at it and create yourself a plan of how many courses and projects you want to create each month and each year. And the accumulated effort over time is what will set you free from having to worry about earning an income through other sources, if that's what you're doing right now. So keep in mind, this is a global marketplace. So you have to get your head around this fact, because if you're teaching right now in a local area, you know all your students and you know what they like and you know what type of projects and so on that they want. And so you've probably already got your own preconceived ideas around that. When you start teaching online, you automatically have a completely different audience. You maybe some of the same audience, but potentially you could be teaching people in Bangalore, India, to Detroit in the USA, to Auckland, New Zealand, to somebody in Mexico and somebody in Saudi Arabia, right? So you've got to start thinking about the courses and projects that you create, that you start to make them more appealing to a broader market. So don't make them too local. This is one of the mistakes that I've made. I have to admit, I absolutely love the area that I live in, the landscape and the seascape. And so I do tend to do very centric things to my area, but that's a bit of a mistake, I think. So having a broader range of subject matter that you create that'll appeal to a global market, I think is really, really important. So make sure you think global, right? Think about the person who lives in a village in a third world country who has internet access, desperately wants to learn how to create art. Think about that person, and also think about the wealthy retired couple in the USA who have affluence and what are they looking for. So there's a combination of you've got to create your courses and projects in a way where there's a combination of entertainment and knowledge transfer and real world practical skills that they can create a result with, as well as a little bit of theory. And getting that blend and balance right is really important when you start to think about a global marketplace. Also, think evergreen. What I mean by this is when you start out creating a course or a project, think about using subjects that are going to be of interest in 20 years' time, right? So if you think 20 to 30 years down the track, is what I'm creating currently right now going to appeal to people in that time frame? It's difficult to know, of course, but if you at least ask the question, then it puts you in a position to create what I call evergreen courses. See, one of the big mistakes that I see with people creating courses, not so much in the art space, but in other areas, especially in business and technology, is they create courses that within 6 months are out of date, right? Because technology changes or whatever. So if you created a course, say on Facebook, how to do Facebook advertising, that's only going to be relevant for 6 months to 12 months because they change it all the time. You need a new course, right? With art, not so much of a problem, but just make sure that the subjects and things that you pick are evergreen. So if something becomes really trendy in the moment, ask yourself, is that going to be of interest still in 10 years' time? So if you think about this, recently adult colouring books became this huge thing and exploded, right? So you could have made some short-term money by creating courses around that, for sure. But you've got to ask yourself the question, in 10 years' time, will that still be a popular subject? We don't know, but you know, we can make some reasonable conclusions. Like people wanting to learn how to create landscapes, that's pretty much evergreen, right? Adult colouring books, unknown. So there's a little bit more risk associated with whether this is going to be an evergreen course or not. Personally, I try and create everything evergreen so that it will be just as relevant in 20 years' time. And also create to a market. Don't just create projects that you like because you like them, right? There has to be a marketplace for the courses that you create and the projects that you create. So one of the advantages of building an audience on social media is that you get to survey them. On my Facebook page this week, I posed the question, what do you most want to learn? And I gave them a variety of options. And I also asked, how do you want to learn it? You know, what format? Do you want DVD, online courses, and so on? And I got some really interesting feedback from that. So what that enables me to do is to create courses that are going to be tailored to my particular market. Not the market, but the audience that I've attracted to me, who are interested in learning from me in particular. I can now survey that audience and create courses to market. So when you're starting out, that's more difficult to do because you don't have an audience. But the more you progress, the more you can start to fine tune the projects and courses you create and create them specifically for the market that you're working in.